Hello and welcome to Film du Siècle, the film and media channel focused on all things 90s and 2000s. This week, Seb and Olly will be discussing Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 1.
Hello and welcome back to Film du Siècle, the film and media discussion channel where we talk about all things 1990s to 2000. And we're here today to begin to wrap up the Harry Potter movie series. With Deathly Hallows Part 1, because they decided to split this into Part 1 and Part 2, which was a bit of a craze like in the early 2010s, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, we did think about doing these both in one video. I don't know whether I want to watch them back to back.
I can't blame you.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to wait a year, so you're getting the authentic experience by having to wait between two videos, I suppose, because at the time they were like, oh, well, we've got to wait a whole year for the second half of the book that we've already read as a movie.
I don't really remember much of this one.
Well, what's to remember? It was basically just the first half of the book. I think it ended with Voldemort getting the Elder Wand.
Yeah, it was the lead-in to the proper finale.
Yeah, like you had false finale and you had real finale.
Yeah. It wasn't Infinity War exactly, was it?
No, it was the closest thing we had at the time. I mean, It did the same with the Hunger Games, where they split the last one into two.
Yeah, so the first one is usually pretty slow.
Yeah, it's interesting because they both got the same complaint. Oh, it's a bit slow going, not much happens. Well, that's a problem when you try and take a three-act structure and split it into two different pieces of media, because you have the beginning and the middle, and then you have the end of the middle and the end, so you don't really have that much of an escalation of stakes or tension.
No.
But that's fine. I don't mind a slower going movie, so the usual complaints about Deathly Hallows Part 1 didn't really apply to me.
Usual preamble, J.K. Rowling, TERF, don't support, don't give her money.
Yeah, please don't, because otherwise she's not going to learn any lessons.
Yep, trans rights, human rights. Sorry if it sounds like I'm rattling that off of a checklist. I'm not feeling very good today.
What are your memories, Olly?
Well, I don't have that many. I mostly remember the ending scene where Luna's dad's selling them out.
Yeah.
And there's that shootout in the diner.
That was good. I liked that scene. That felt very spaghetti western of them, which is not really a genre that we've seen aped in any way in Harry Potter before.
I preferred when spells had names and they weren't just like
blasts, like key blasts.
Yeah, just shooting each other.
Yeah, although I don't think they say stupefy in that one, and then Hermione wipes their memories, and that's a change from the books, because in the books I think it was some sort of temporary thing that she could undo later, whereas in this she uses Obliviate, which is the thing that they couldn't even cure Lockhart of. Yeah. So basically she permanently wipes her parents' memories. But imagine if Hermione's parents had family or friends over and like, oh, where's Hermione? Who? You know, your daughter Hermione. Never heard of her. Okay.
Although, apparently, since Fantastic Beasts 2 came out, memory charms now only affect bad memories. So what does that say about her relationship to her parents?
I mean, I exactly. Oh, good. At least we've forgotten that horrible daughter of ours.
Oh.
Yeah, well done there, Hermione. And this was a part 2 thing, but Harry also broke the Elder Wand, which didn't happen in the book. I think he just used it to fix stuff.
He gave it up to a museum or something, and he used it to repair his own wand, which still breaks in this one.
Yeah, and it never gets fixed in this one. He just ends up wandless. Oh, no, he has Malfoy's wand, doesn't he? He has Malfoy's wand.
Yeah. Is Ollivander technically an arms dealer?
Yeah, he kind of is. Although, isn't he the most badass arms dealer?
That sells to children.
Yeah, rest in peace, John Hurt. Oh, he's in this as well. He's in this movie, because part of it is that they have to free him from Malfoy's dungeon, because obviously if you want to keep prisoners, you keep them in the basement of a government official.
Yeah.
Makes
He's
sense.
the War Doctor dressed as the third Doctor in the first one.
Yeah, that's a good way to put him. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have decent memories of this one. I mean, we are doing part 2, even though it's technically not a Film du Siècle movie, because it would be daft to do all of them without doing part 2.
Yeah, we have the 2/3 rule. As long as 2/3 of a franchise is in our time period, we can cover the rest of it that isn't.
Also, the book it was based on comes into the film de siècle time period anyway.
Yeah.
It was only based on one book, these two movies, which they split into... How do you feel about that, by the way?
Well, this was the first one to do it.
Yeah. Is that generally a practice that you don't mind or like or don't like?
I generally don't like it. I think the only time it's been called for was Infinity War and Endgame, because those are two different stories.
Yeah, and also they're not based on a book. Well, they're based on a comic book, but you know what I mean.
Well, it was originally going to be Infinity War Part 1, Infinity War Part 2, and then they just sort of made them into different stories.
Which I liked. I liked that.
If you're going to do that, I'd say that's how you do it.
I mean, they also did it with Twilight around the same time, didn't they? I've never watched or read anything Twilight. I've not got anything particularly against it. It's just not my kind of thing from what I've seen.
I've got nothing against it or nothing for Twilight. I only know what Twilight is because everyone hated it, or for some reason. It was like
Justin Bieber. It was popular to dislike for some reason.
Yeah.
I'm kind of indifferent to him. He's okay. He's not the worst, so I don't care. But yeah,
I have no opinion on Justin Bieber either.
I don't know. Some of his recent songs have been okay, but I'm not really a big fan. But anyway, I digress. The only two times where I liked it, kind of Harry Potter, because it was nice to see one last movie before. Well, we had no idea about Fantastic Beasts back then, and also Hunger Games, just because I enjoyed the hell out of going to see those movies. It was like an annual event. It was very fun. Bloody hell, you really don't like the Hunger Games, do you? You were yawning in response to that anecdote.
No, I was just... The yawn was incidental.
Oh, okay. Those were fun movies. I dug that with... who was the guy?
I didn't really like the first Hunger Games movie. That was a bit meh for me.
Yeah, I didn't like the style of it because they did the whole shaky cam thing when it was really popular. And they overdid it to the point where you couldn't really see what was happening. It
looked simultaneously over and underproduced, if that makes sense. Well, we'll probably get to that when we get to it.
Well, it's not in our time period, so we may as well talk about it now very briefly.
Oh, right, yeah. It looked... The cinematography looked cheap and everything else didn't, and it was weird.
Yeah, it was the movie that overdid the shaky cam. The later ones still did shaky cam, but to a much lesser extent, and this time it actually complemented the cinematography instead of overpowering it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of liked for part 1 and part 2 of that movie series as well. It was just fun to see Woody Harrelson on our screens doing his bit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say he carried those movies, because that would be disparaging to everyone else involved.
It was good, though.
Yeah. I also liked the theme song that announcer guy, I think it was Caesar, had in those movies.
Yeah.
That was good. Like, if I ever became some sort of presenter, I would use that. Anyway, back to Harry Potter. I think we've both given our memories of it. I remember seeing it and it being a big event. I remember the tagline being, "It all ends," which... I don't know, I like the way it says it, like it's either no big deal or it's something we should all be relieved about.
Yeah. Either way, the tagline didn't age well, did it?
No. It all ends, except for the Fantastic Beasts movies and the weird stage play they did with the time travelling.
That was weird.
Yeah. Okay, so shall we go ahead and watch this movie?
Yeah, alright. We'll see you after the credits roll.
Yeah, we'll let you know what we think.
See you then.
And we're back in the room, having watched Harry Potter and the Order of... No, we didn't. We watched Harry Potter and the Half-Blood... No! What did we watch?
Definitely Hallows Part 1. So.
Yes, that one! Part 1. I got the Part 1 part right, but yeah, we watched Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows Part 1. Ollie, what did you think of it?
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was... Well, I remember it being slow, and it still was, but it was a good slow. Though it was very meditative in a way.
Slow by design, like for U2 Spy Plane.
Yeah. It's a very lived-in world at this point, and you can feel it winding down for the end. And I do really like that. One thing I don't like is the colour grading. This film is too dark. Yeah. It was barely showing up on my screen at all at some points.
They do it with the opening as well, and they've got this bizarre obsession with the whole boiling kettle over darkness motif.
The darkness is a metaphor for darkness.
Yep, that happens more and more with each one. I swear if they made a ninth movie, it just would have been a pitch black opening where you couldn't even see the Warner Brothers logo.
Yeah. And a pitch black screen where you occasionally hear the words, Harry!
I swear that the Warner Brothers logo in the last Harry Potter movies is darker than how it appears in the Dark Knight movies. But what is that rising kettle sound that they keep using in Harry Potter? It's like, is it because he's British and British people like tea? Is that it?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's one thing this movie did. It gave us Bill Nighy with his unusual inflections.
Yeah. Was he supposed to be Welsh in this film? I couldn't tell.
Don't know. He played Scrimmager, I think. I don't know how that's pronounced. Scrimerger?
I know who you mean.
Yeah. He played that guy, the Prime Minister, who appeared for 2 scenes and died half an hour into the movie. That is the biggest waste... Yeah, off screen. That is the biggest waste of Bill Nighy a movie's ever had.
Yeah, an established character in Mad Eye Moody also died off screen. I mean, I know that's how it happened in the book.
But that's kind of good, because when it's in a war, some people die unceremoniously and never seen again.
Yeah.
Somehow it's realistic. This movie where a bunch of people shapeshift into Harry Potter is realistic in the way it depicts war.
Yeah, in that way.
So you really, really liked it. Was it wicked?
Well, I liked it enough. I wouldn't say it was wicked.
You wouldn't say you were loving it like this?
No, I would not.
No, I wouldn't either. Yeah, it was okay. I enjoyed it. It's about as good as I remember it being. It's... Again, I don't mind the slower pace, but I can understand why it wouldn't be a lot of people's cup of tea.
Yeah. For some reason, I found it oddly funny when Luna's dad tries to turn them over to the Death Eaters and they just blow up his house without even going inside to check if he's there.
Yeah, they could have fucked up and killed them all. Wait, he wanted him alive. Oh, wait, we killed him? Oh, no. I also like that really awkward thing where they all drink the tea at the same time.
Yeah.
It feels like some sort of bizarre sketch or a deleted scene from Father Ted.
It would be funny under the right circumstances, but I think it was deliberately awkward to try and tip you off that he's going to betray them.
Yeah, and I like how he snaps at them and gets all frightened. That's really good terrified acting. And
yeah.
When your villain isn't the least bit intimidating looking, you have to do everything you can to make his presence frightening.
Yeah.
So the acting really helps there. Having said that, there was one scene in this where I did find Voldemort actually intimidating. Well, Ralph Fiennes' portrayal anyway. And that was when he's standing over sort of Insomnia Malfoy with his wand.
Yeah.
He really threw his weight around there very well. Because before that, it was like a bunch of buddies chuckling about how great everything is for them. And it's funny how the villains get along with each other much better than the good guys do in this one.
Yeah. Well, people of, villainous dispositions tend to have simpler interests that more easily align, so...
Yeah, I mean, it's like the beer hall putsch, you know, there's a reason why that took place in a beer hall, because they like being sociable. Villains have a good time, and they're very inclusive in some ways. It's like, join me. You know, you never hear the good guys, except unless it's Naruto saying, join me.
I wouldn't call Voldemort inclusive.
No, he's not exactly the kind of villain that you could use talk no jutsu to win him over.
No.
But he's very fakely friendly sometimes.
Yeah.
Which is quite funny. You know, when they're all having a good old laugh and like, spoken like a true politician. I like how he was so impressed with how much of a non sequitur that was, he forgot that he didn't get a satisfying answer to his question.
Yeah.
I think that was very nicely handled. Like, I'm not even mad that you didn't answer my question. That was a really good dodge. You evaded it very well. I'm not even going to chase it up, to be honest. Have a cookie.
Yeah.
But I like how Bill Nighy even said the word strong in it, like he forgot what he was saying halfway through. The ministry will remain firm and strong.
I don't think he says firm.
No, I can't remember what he said, but he said the ministry.
He just said the ministry will remain
strong.
As if he's like, what's a good word here?
Yeah, like I can't say good. That's not a strong enough word. I can't say nice. I'll say strong. I can't use words that are more than 5 letters long in this speech, otherwise people will not realise what's going on. If only we had some sort of exposition kid who could explain what was happening for all the simpletons.
They should have got him back.
They should have got him back. He should have been in this one. He could have explained how the necklace was making everybody angry. He could have explained how it would be really difficult to break into the Ministry of Magic. Yeah, because we're all very confused because we have no one to tell us these things.
Maybe it's just because I like likening stuff to Lord of the Rings, but I got Lord of the Rings vibes out of the Horcrux.
Yeah, because it has that kind of effect where it makes someone really possessive and amplifies their worst qualities, as it were.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice as a plot device, and I know there's that little fan theory that that's the reason why the Dursleys were so nasty, because Harry was a Horcrux, but...
No, that's not true. They were just dicks.
Exactly, that kind of removes their agency to just be dicks.
Yeah.
Also, Ron and Hermione would be horrible all the time, if that were the case.
Yeah.
And we're only horrible some of the time.
And that was only with an actual Horcrux around them, so it's like...
This movie had very good visual cues, like at the beginning when you first see Harry in the Hollow, not the Hollow, what's the house called where the Dursleys live?
Privet Drive.
Yeah, where you first see... Sorry, Harry in the Hollow had a good bit of alliteration with it, so I wanted to say that, even though it wasn't... That sounds like a sitcom.
Harry
like
in
Larry
the Hollow,
in the
yeah,
house.
I know what you
Harry
mean.
in the Hollow. Yeah, maybe I've just been watching too much WandaVision, and boy, isn't that a good show.
It is.
I'm liking WandaVision. Apparently the most watched show on the TV at the moment.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm glad that it's got some mainstream popularity. Well, you'd expect so, being MCU, but I digress. Yeah, you get some good bits of setup when you first see him at the Dursleys' house, where he's got the newspaper about Dumbledore, he's got the shard of the mirror with the man's face on, he's got the RAB thing written down. So it's good at picking up mystery threads.
Yep.
Because a lot of people forget, but the Harry Potter books are essentially mysteries, because they're all based around something mysterious that gets revealed at the end. And that's probably another reason why this one didn't click so much with people, because the climax of all the other ones has been really spectacular. Like, you had the whole fight in the graveyard in the fourth one, you had the fight with the basilisk in the second one, you had him fight the bald man with the turban in the first one. At the end of this one, you've just got the side quest at Malfoy's Manor as the climax of the movie. And it's just an event that happens while they're travelling. It's not really something that there's any huge build-up to. I suppose you could say the climax is Voldemort now has the Elder Wand, but that doesn't feel like a big enough oh shit moment to end the movie on, does it?
No, I know what you mean.
So that's a problem when you split a book into two halves, I suppose. The first half's not going to have a climactic or particularly enthralling ending. It's just going to be halfway through the story.
Well, I mean, it could have. I think that was probably the best one they could have done with what happens in the story.
Yeah, because the last thing that happens is Dobby dying, and that was a good scene. That was a well-done scene, and it makes you sad for Dobby, which is good.
Yeah. I mean, if you swapped the Voldemort getting the one scene and them getting away and Dobby dying scene, would that make for a better ending?
I don't know, it would have made for a more sombre ending, certainly.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be a bit like ending Fellowship of the Ring with Dumbledore dropping into the chasm. Not Dumbledore, what am I fucking on about? Lord of the Rings Dumbledore, Gandalf. What's wrong with me today? I feel like that zookeeper from The Mighty Boosh who can't remember what gorillas are.
Bob Fossil.
Yeah, Bob Fossil. And there's some nice rough and cockney villains in this one, because they're always rough and cockney.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you want to establish that a character is untrustworthy, you have them come from the East End of London.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only stereotypes you can really do for a villain without it coming across as racist, isn't it? So, you sort of have to make them cockney. You also had the Adamant guy. You had the Adamant guy, I call him, you know, the Snatcher, who looks like evil Adamant.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Adamant now has a crack addiction. His plaster on his nose is peeled off and he's looking for trouble.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I liked it. You liked it.
Yeah.
Would you say that it feels on par with the previous ones?
Not really.
No.
I think it's just a little more
subdued, deflated, in a way.
Yeah. I mean, it's deliberate, but yeah.
Not going to the school doesn't really help either, I think.
No.
It's kind of weird having the characters outside of their element in unfamiliar surroundings.
Yeah.
Although it did have its moments, I really liked, and we talked about this earlier, the confrontation in the coffee shop.
Yeah.
David Yates really likes his cafe scenes, doesn't he?
He does.
They make for a good rustic setting, actually.
The gunfight with wands in the coffee shop.
In fairness, you can hear them dimly say the words of spells.
Yeah. But the spells don't look distinctive anymore.
No, they don't really have their own flares or flurries, and, sort of like how the Expecto Patronum did.
Although that was a good scene with the Dementors stuck in the lift door.
Yeah, lifts, the Dementor's one true weakness.
I like those old-timey kind of lifts with the grid door.
Yeah, the Rocky Horror Picture Show lifts, as I call them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love those designs. There used to be one at your uni, and I'm sad they got rid of it.
Yeah.
So, how well did the film achieve its goals, and what were they?
Well, I answer this the same with every Harry Potter. Its goal was to bring at least part of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows to life. It did that pretty well.
I feel like you can give a slightly different answer for this one, actually, considering it was only setting out to tell half of the story. It kind of built the hype up enough. I don't know if it achieved its goals of making Harry Potter and his friends trudging along the Yorkshire moors and the Forest of Dean that interesting. Visually, the pacing definitely suffered from being split into two. I liked it, but I can see why people wouldn't.
Yeah.
Like, people are used to a self-contained story with lots of interesting things jumping from different classes to classes. I can see why that big departure where it's just them on the run in the countryside not working for a lot of people. I kind of liked it because it gave us some room for some slower character development, which you wouldn't usually get the chance to do, especially when they're adapting the longer books into movies.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that the whole Ron being jealous of Harry subplot isn't very well liked. But I like it, and it does make sense because it's been a theme running for the last 4 movies/books or so. Because Ron's always had this kind of inferiority complex when it comes to Harry.
Yeah, he has. And it is good to see that pay off here.
Yeah, it's good to see it pay off. It's also good to see it resolved before the final movie, as it were. Because that just would have been a bit of a hanging chad's bit of drama to have in the last ever Harry Potter movie.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they got that sorted out in part 1 rather than part 2. I still don't know why Snape had to dump the Sword of Gryffindor in the middle of a frozen lake.
I think it might have been a clumsy King Arthur reference. You know, the Lady of the Lake with Excalibur.
I don't believe that J.K. Rowling has ever made an intentional reference or allegory. Oh wow, the way that they treat Lupin is sort of like how gay people are ostracised for the AIDS pandemic in the 80s, isn't it? That's brilliant. I mean, yes, of course, that's what I always intended.
She does pretend to have always intended things, so...
I mean, if that were true, then there would be a scene in this one where a woman cannibalizes another woman and wears her skin in order to trick people into thinking she is that woman.
Yeah.
And that was obviously intended because, this is a Hannibal Lecter book, isn't it? Obviously.
We're of course making reference to Nagini the snake being a woman.
Yeah.
with a curse that keeps her as a snake.
Yeah, because that was always intended, obviously.
Yeah.
Jesus is in Harry Potter, by the way.
Is he?
Yeah, because there's a church at Godric's Hollow. Also, if you look, there's a stained glass of Jesus in the church.
Yeah.
So, was Jesus a wizard?
I mean, it might have been put there by muggles, so...
So you're saying that the wizards stole their village?
I mean...
That'd be interesting.
Not necessarily stole, just bought into it. And just sort of...
Bloody hell, all these road people have took over our village. What is this, Hot Fuzz?
Maybe they just bought all the houses from people who went somewhere else.
So basically it was wizard gentrification.
Maybe.
Wizard gentrification, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Jesus must have been a wizard, I guess.
Who attained a cult following.
Yeah, it's like, you're not supposed to use the water into wine spell here. You're getting everyone pissed.
Hey, lighten up, buddy.
No, I mean, you're literally pissing people off. They want to crucify you. Oh, don't be dramatic. No, I mean literally crucify you. I don't mean like, oh, they're going to crucify you for this. I mean, they're literally going to crucify you for this.
It'll be fine.
See, it's only now that they're nailing my hands into the cross that I realise that you weren't just using colourful language.
Yeah.
That wasn't just hyperbole. They actually meant it. And now I feel more of a fool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the film, it kind of achieves its goals because I liked it. But I don't know what they could have done better, to be honest, in order to tell this abridged half of the story in a movie and have it be...
Well, other than just have it as one film like all the rest of them have been. Because Deathly Hallows isn't even the longest book.
Do you know what? I think they could have got away with making it like a 3.5 hour long movie, because the fans would have watched the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just delete random scenes. The scene that a lot of people don't like, but I thought was alright, is when Harry and Hermione were dancing.
Somehow I thought you were going to say that. Yeah, I don't mind that scene. I don't particularly have anything for it or against it, to be honest.
It's nice. I mean, it sort of establishes the whole they're just friends dynamic, but to be honest, I think the earlier movies did that very well. I don't feel like that had to be reiterated. I think we, at that point, are intelligent enough to realise that Ron's paranoia is just irrational paranoia because he's wearing an evil bracelet.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's needed for that purpose, but it was just a nice scene to have.
Yeah.
Although we did get to see Ron send a Horcrux to Horny Jail.
Yeah.
He literally bonked it. He bonked it with a sword.
Go to Horny Jail.
I like how steamy that brief scene was. It's like, bloody hell!
Bit much for Harry Potter.
I mean, they were never going to show any kind of nudity, obviously, but they got as close as they possibly could in that kind of movie.
Yeah.
Like, oh, go to Horny Jail movie.
Yeah.
I could just imagine, like, Ron, like, slamming the sword down and the audience being like, hey, I was enjoying that.
Yeah.
What a buzzkill. Although, the one scene I did like was the buzzkill illuminator scene, you know, where Harry and Hermione are talking and then Ron turns off the lights and then says, yeah, I'm still here. And I thought that was a really good scene.
It was.
Also, David Yates did his David Yates thing well in portraying an authoritarian regime because the scenes in the Ministry were really chilling.
Yeah.
Like, not to the point where it was too miserable to watch, but to the point where you see what the stakes are.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Because you never really see much of Voldemort succeeding in these movies. He just sort of fails upwards. So to see what he's doing with his power, even if it's just for a 10-minute scene, I think was very important, because otherwise he's just some angry, bold guy who they easily deal with all the time.
Yeah. Well, Harry fails upwards too.
Everyone does. It's Harry Potter, it's just people abusing their privilege and somehow being successful despite screwing up all the time.
Yeah.
Like, being me has its privileges. That applies to Harry, Voldemort, and Dumbledore.
That could be the tagline for the entire series.
Yeah, that is basically the tagline of Harry Potter. Brilliant. It kind of achieved its goals. It was a difficult goal to achieve. And I'm not sure it was the right call to even attempt it and not just do a very long 7th movie.
Yeah.
Which is why we originally intended to watch it all as one, but I think that's a bit of a task, isn't it?
Yeah. And also, it extends the life of the franchise by another year.
Bloody hell, it's like the film franchise's Horcrux, isn't it? When you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it was deserved in Twilight. I'm not 100% sure it was deserved in Hunger Games either, but it gets a pass because I like the Hunger Games movies.
Yeah, I know what I mean.
Ollie, Did the movie exceed your expectations?
Yeah, I was expecting it to be a bit more boring, to be honest.
Yeah, it never really bored me, but I can see why it would bore some people. Again, there's a lot of craft to admire in this one. Not to the same extent as the last one, but there's a lot to admire. Because with the last one, it was very well made. The production value was great. A lot of the filming techniques were great. It was just really good. And this one, there is some of that, but there's also some odd decisions. Like, they definitely discovered shaky cam at some point between the last movie and this one and said, oh, we've got to put that in our movie.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, running through a dark and miserable-looking British forest with the shaky cam just isn't as dramatic as they want us to think it is.
No, it isn't.
I'd actually like to see David Yates direct a really anti-authority movie, because I think he'd do it well.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I really like the undercover at the ministry scene with the polyjuice potion.
Yeah, that was good. And I don't remember the scene, but I liked the scene where he was sort of looking through all the papers of the various characters like Sirius and Dumbledore where all had crosses through. It was very Incredibles in that way.
Yeah.
Also, do you know what's weird? 2 out of the 7 birthday cakes that Harry would have had in his life have been botched in some way.
Yeah, and that isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
Exactly. His first one was sat on by Hagrid, and his most recent one got left behind because obviously they were fleeing for their lives and grabbing a birthday cake wasn't a top priority for anybody.
Yeah.
Neville's one appearance in this movie was good.
Yeah, I mean, he had one line.
And it was good.
On the train. He's not here.
I seem to remember Hedwig's death being more of a gut punch in the books, and I'm sure that you said the same thing to me when we watched it.
Yeah, I did.
Like, it was a big deal in the books, to the point where it sort of eclipsed what happened to Mad-Eye, which, as we said, happened off screen.
Yeah.
But you don't really see any lingering sign of Harry missing Hedwig. It's just, I think the reason why Hedwig was killed off is because it would have been a logistical nightmare carrying around an owl for all these adventures.
Yeah.
So you sort of have to kill off the bird, so that you don't have to write around it all the time. So yeah, going into this, Hedwig had a big target on his head. Was it a he or a her? I don't know the gender of Hedwig.
It was a female owl, I think.
Ah, fair enough. It's weird that they set up the whole Dumbledore subplot.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember it doing much in the book, other than to retroactively prove that Dumbledore was gay. But it does even less in the movie. It just feels like a non sequitur where he meets the old man who knew Dumbledore and the rude, sort of snooty woman is like, didn't you know Dumbledore at all? It never comes up again after that.
No, not really.
You know, the whole, was Dumbledore a bit shifty? Never comes up again. Never comes up again.
No. I think it's just to establish that Dumbledore was a bit more of an enigma than even he presented as, which...
But we kind of knew that already.
Yeah.
So yeah, the movie did exceed my expectations, but not by a lot. It's just I noticed a few things I hadn't noticed before. Ollie, is there an element in the film that particularly appeals?
I don't know, it's quite an easy watch for me, because of the slowness, like, you can just...
It's like a nice glass of whiskey, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can just slowly sip at it for a while. And it's relaxing, and it's got a bit of a sedative effect for some people as well.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
One thing we haven't mentioned yet is the acting. I think the acting was pretty good in this one.
It was.
A bit more understated. It hasn't got the big dramatic hero moments yet, because those come up in part 2, but...
Well, the most dramatic was probably the argument where Ron left.
And if it weren't for that conflict, where would the conflict be? It would literally just be in 2 scenes. Well, 3 if you're counting the cannibalism snake scene. Also, let's face it, if you were travelling with 2 of your friends in order to do something important and you had no other human contact, they would start to get on your nerves no matter how much you like them.
I mean, I know that from experience.
Yeah, you can have too much for good thing, and familiarity breeds contempt is the phrase, I think.
Just about, yeah.
Yeah, so that's believable, although I don't know why Hermione was wearing perfume in the forest.
Sometimes you do things for comfort.
Fair enough. I mean, well, is it just a matter of, I've got to smell nice for the boys, we're on the run, you know?
No, I think she just wanted to smell nice for her.
Yeah, exactly. Hermione would do that for her, but it did backfire. That was very Oh well, it had no long-lasting consequences.
Uh,
I feel like the Ralph Fiennes frustration yells were good in this again, like when he was at the pylons and he failed to catch Harry, so he just threw a temper tantrum.
his signature frustration yell.
It's brilliant. He didn't really get to mug for the camera so much in this one.
You know what that reminds me of in a weird way?
Go on.
You know when Omid Jalili does an impression of Godzilla?
Yes! Ah! Yeah! Like, it's the small things I like. I know I say this a lot, but it's all the small things in this one. Like the Kingsley Lupin interaction where they're not sure of each other's identities, so they have their wands raised to each other, like the last words that Dumbledore spoke to both of us. That was good.
Yeah, that was a good moment.
And I liked Mundungus Fletcher for the 5 minutes of screen time he got.
Yeah, he's appropriately loathsome.
Yeah, but he's also not so loathsome that you hate him. He's sort of just a smarmy obstacle.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, we got Creature for a minute as well.
Yeah. Racist Alfred.
Yeah, racist Alfred, that's who he is.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that in, like, DC Comics? Like, bloody hell, Alfred, stop, you're embarrassing me. Sorry,
Yeah.
Master Bruce. I just wanted you to know my opinion of these people.
They're the wrong sort of people, don't you know? But also, Michael Caine would never.
No. I mean, he's only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. Yeah. Wait, what happened with Wormtongue in the end? Because in the book he...
Wormtail.
Yeah, Wormtail? I
Yeah,
said
you
Wormtail.
said Wormtongue again.
Did I? Oh, sorry, I'm
wrong
thinking of Lord of the
franchise.
Rings. Yeah. But yeah, Wormtongue... Peter Pettigrew! What happened to Peter Pettigrew in the end?
Well, in the book, the magic hand that Voldemort gave him strangled him because he let them go.
Which I kind of like, because that's a good resolution to his character arc.
Yeah.
You know, sort of hinting that there was a small hint of goodness all the way down, and that's what was his undoing in the end, because of the circles he chose to mix in. Whereas in this one, he just gets knocked out.
Yeah, by Dobby.
Yeah, but again, they play it like it's him being really incompetent, but it's not. I mean, nobody could have anticipated Dobby teleporting behind him and knocking him out.
Yeah, I mean, he is effectively a rogue house elf.
Exactly, nobody knows of his presence, so it's not something they could plan for.
Yeah.
Although I'm glad that Wormtail gets to rest, and he must have got knocked out so bad that he didn't appear in the part 2, because I don't remember him being in part 2.
Yeah, well, he was dead in the book, so, like...
Yeah, maybe he was comatose.
Or maybe they found out he screwed up and killed him off screen.
Yeah.
It was just never brought up.
Well, I'm glad that he doesn't have to be in the next one, because his back must really hurt for carrying the Death Eaters for 4 movies.
Yeah.
He's literally the only reason why they got anywhere.
Yeah, he's the only Death Eater that's had any success.
Yeah. I'm sure... Have we talked about how dumb the Frozen Lake scene is yet?
Yes, we have.
I mean, why did Snape have to do that? I think the whole thing is the sword only comes to you in a moment of great peril, but isn't having to kill Voldemort a moment of great peril already?
I suppose it would be.
I suppose it has to be immediate peril, but why couldn't Snape, who...
was trying to give him the sword without being spotted, and that was the first thing he thought of. Maybe he only meant to throw it on the ice and it went through. I don't know.
Oh, shit.
Shit.
What was that?
Oh, well.
That sounded like Alan Rickman saying shit. Yeah, well done, Snape. I mean, Harry did the right thing in getting naked, which is not a phrase I thought I'd be uttering in this review, but because if you ever watch Bear Grylls or things like that, you'll know that the best thing you can do is not wear clothes if you're naked in a thing, because it will stay cold and it will keep you cold longer than if you're naked when you come out. And do you know how you dry yourself if you've been dipped in frozen water and you're in, like, the Arctic? You pat yourself over with snow.
Right.
You pat yourself over with snow in order to dry off and keep your body temperature.
Huh.
So there's a survival tip just in case you end up in Antarctica.
I'll keep that in mind.
How does the film, Ollie, hold up today?
Well, it's not that old a film, is it?
It's near the end of our range.
Yeah, it's maybe 10 years old at this point, and that's still pretty old.
Yeah, it looks... Well, I say it looks good. I'm not a big fan, like you, of the whole very, very dark motif. It's very much like that episode of Game of Thrones that was too dark.
I think it does suffer from being the lead into the climax instead of the actual climax.
Yeah, it feels like a bit of a false start, considering we know the first half and the second half of the story at this point.
Or that they're getting all the setup out of the way so that the next one can be the big fireworks display.
Oh yeah, and if memory serves, the next one really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember really liking part 2.
Yeah,
it holds up just fine. Personally, I think a lot of this is a matter of taste. Some people just automatically not like the pacing or the change of locale or the slowness of this particular movie. It's a matter of personal preference. I like slow drama. I mean, I liked the first few seasons of Lost where there would be 10 episodes without anything happening other than character development.
Yeah.
So that's just me. It might be different for you, and if it is, that's understandable. But Ollie, finally, I'm going to ask, was the film received appropriately at the time?
I think so, but how was it received at the time?
Okay, it had a budget of 250 million, which was shared with part 2, and made 976.9 million.
Yeah, that's doing pretty well.
I seem to remember that being on par with the last few. Yeah, it did slightly better than Half-Blood Prince.
Cool. I'd say it was received appropriately, and that's the other goal it achieved. Make a lot of money.
And it did that. According to Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows Part 1, 77% review score, critic score. You'll never guess the audience score.
What's that?
85%.
Oh, wow, I thought it would be lower.
Yeah, I would have. I seem to remember this one not being that well received, like, critically. But no, apparently it is. Apparently it's even higher scored than Half-Blood Prince amongst the audience. Interesting. Very interesting. Although there is a thumbnail image of Eddie Redmayne, so it is possible they thought they were reviewing a different movie.
Maybe.
But no, the critics' consensus says, it can't help but feel like the prelude it is, but Deathly Hallows Part 1 is a beautifully filmed, emotionally satisfying penultimate instalment for Harry Potter series.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, can't really argue with that.
Yeah.
So, how do you want to sum up, Ollie?
I don't know, it's a good lead into what will be an explosive finale, no doubt.
It's the train ticket before the journey. It looks nice, it's well presented, it's been printed well. If you sniff it, it smells kind of cardboardy. But if you don't get the ticket, then you can't get on the train.
Yeah, that's true.
And next time we're going to get on the train for part 2 of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows.
Okay, yeah, we'll see you next time for that.
Yes, we will. Looking forward to it.
See ya.